Hey there, it's Andrea. Welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Elena Sarango-Muñiz. She is a leadership executive coach and emotional intelligence expert who transforms organizational cultures through impactful leadership development. As founder and CEO of Sarango Executive Coaching, she partners with senior level growth minded leaders to build engaged, high performing teams and create sustainable culture change. Elena, welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast.
Thank you, Andrea. It's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you for inviting me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and where you got this desire to be an executive coach and to help in this way?
Sure. I am originally from Lima, Peru, and I came to the United States when I was 22 years old.
I
Main
have been
reason.
to Lima, by the way.
That's wonderful. Okay. I hope you had a
Yes,
good
beautiful city.
experience. It is a
Yeah.
beautiful city. Yes. And I came to pursue my American dream
Mm.
by studying a master's. I had finished my business degree in Lima and I came to study my master's with the idea that going back to Peru with a master's, I was going to be able to find a job because back then, long time ago, it's the typical looking for a job to where you have your resume in a manila folder and you are in a line of 100 people trying to get to the front just to hand it to the security guard of the building that you're applying to. And that kind of got really old. And I said, I have to do something about this.
Hmm.
So I decided to immigrate to the United States, and studying was a way to do that. I was also fleeing from terrorism and a lot of, problems with the government, etc. So when I came here, I found um, a way of really feeling a sense of freedom. It wasn't easy, of course, as a young, lady coming and speaking a different language. It was a difficult adaptation, but little by little, I was able to find my way. So after getting my master's, I started working in the hospitality industry at the front desk, working the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., dealing with all kinds of things as you can imagine, and an overnight shift at a hotel. But I tell everybody that overnight shift was my PhD, really. It taught me about about life, about customer service, about thinking on your feet really quick and making the critical decisions on the spot. And then I was very lucky to have a sponsor to where she realized that I had potential in human resources. So I started my human resources career as a leader from the get-go. So I started as a training manager in the hospitality industry. And then I moved my way up all the way to executive. I worked for four different industries, four different companies, oil and gas, tech, and professional services. And it is not until I got to, I would say, about 10 years ago in my career when I realized that what I loved doing was supporting leaders with just being there for them, just being that mirror they needed to have for them to be able to open up, trust someone, to really think things through and come up with their own decisions, solutions to their problems. And that's when I discovered coaching. Actually, my boss at that job helped me get the certification back in 2015. And I started applying coaching in all my roles, supporting the leaders. And in 2023, when I was in a technology company, I made the decision that that's what I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing, which was just coaching executives and doing that full time, but with the freedom of my own time, flexibility, and being able to make my own decisions and, get the benefits and the consequences of making my own decisions. And that's when I decided to just go full time as an executive coach.
So, do you mind sharing what was the time frame from when you came as a 22-year-old to when you started in HR?
Yeah, so I started working in hotels as an international student at the front desk when I arrived. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe, as an international student, you have limitations of how many hours you can work.
Sure.
So I started working part-time at the front desk. And then after I finished my master's, so I would say it was about 2 years.
So that was pretty
Um,
quick, really, to make that transition. But you
yeah,
had a master's degree and you were
yes, it was two
older. Yeah.
two to 3 years that I
Uh-huh.
and it's a if you want me to share, it was actually a pretty significant time in my life when I switched from operations into HR. I was working in the overnight shift when the new owners of the hotel came and took over. So
Mm.
in the middle of the night, they asked me to open all the books to give them all the information. It was pretty traumatic. Of course, I
Wow.
called my general manager, and because I was attached to a visa, a work visa,
Mm.
and the new ownership took over, within 1 week, I had to leave the country. So this hotel company sent me within 1 week. I had to leave everything I had, apartment, car, boyfriend, everything. And they sent me to Mexico to work at one of their properties over there. And it
And
is not a
that was because what was the reason for that?
So a work visa is has a main, company sponsor that is
Okay.
sponsoring you for the
Okay.
visa. So
Yeah.
if the sponsor changes, you're not legally in the country anymore.
Mm.
So for me to not be on an illegal status, the only
Mm-hmm.
option was to either go back to Peru or continue with my company in another country.
Wow.
Closest company, closest country, same language was Mexico. So I lived in Cancun for a year,
Mm.
and I came back to this. When I came back to the States a year later as a tourist, um, the former HR director at that hotel, now a new company, said, Elena, I think you will be amazing for our HR team. So I want to sponsor you under this new company as a training manager. And I had no idea what a training manager was. I
Mm.
didn't really know what is that she was offering me, but I said, yes, I want to come back to the States. And I did.
Wow.
And 30 something years later, I'm still here.
That is a really good and important story for us to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I sometimes, when I say it, I start realizing, wow, I went through a lot of crazy changes in my life, but that's exactly what helped me build the resilience that I needed
Yeah.
to not necessarily overcome just the obstacles that life presents us to grow, but also to have the courage to start my own business.
And when you did get started in your own business and now what you're doing now, I'm kind of wondering how you or what you've brought with you from that experience. You know, what is shaping who Elena is now that and the way that you work with leaders. How has your experience shaped the way that you're working with people?
Mhm. It is in those moments when you feel despair, when you feel like there's why is this happening to me? That you get the strength, you tap into your own wisdom,
Mm.
because we all have it within ourselves. There's that power that we always need to come out of situations. And those situations were so critical for me. They would determine my future, really. They either will crush my American dream, or they would make it happen. And I believe that going through those experiences helped me not only trust myself, and I had to believe that I had what I needed to have to regain the confidence that I needed to come out of it. But I also started to learn about this spirituality in general. I came from a very, Catholic religious family, and my spiritual journey opened up in a way that was more than just a religion. And with that, I started to meet amazing people that started showing up in my life, where, I truly believe that I started attracting the people that I needed in my life for me to be able to become stronger, more confident, see more options, see other ways to find true happiness. And so I had several mentors. I had amazing leaders that I worked with. I was able to identify who I wanted to be and who I don't want it to be. And I found actually reflection and silence and talking to myself, and I discovered what I use a lot with my clients, which is that narrative that we hold within ourselves, that the conversation, that inner chatter that we have with our own selves, so important for how we show up every day at work and at home in our lives. So that to me has helped me be successful with my clients, because a lot of people, at least the clients that come to me, those beliefs of, you know, my happiness depends on external factors, is really making them unhappy. So what I help them is to discover, to tap within themselves, and uncover that beautiful power we have. And that starts with the conversation we have with our own selves. Did that
So
answer your question, Andrea?
sure, yeah. So the conversation that we have with ourselves, I think that's one thing that when I was younger, I felt like I didn't have control over. It
Yeah.
just sort of happened in my head. And um and then at some point, I'm not sure I can pinpoint where exactly, but I figured out that I didn't have to believe everything that I was telling myself, and or that I was, kind of hearing in my head. I'm wondering how you help people make that transition and kind of start to control the narrative in their own minds.
Hmm. Yes, and that's based on my own experience, right? To where, first of all, you have to really be clear, and that's the first thing we identify with my clients, is what's that vision of the future self, and to have that very clear, exactly how that looks like, and why is that you want to be that person. So when we have that motivation, when we have that clear picture of who we want to be in the future, then we reverse engineer and start creating a strategy. So it's not really the ultimate goal, it's actually the starting point. That vision of yourself is the starting point. So part of creating that strategy is, okay, to be that person, who do you need to be today? Who is, Elena, who does Elena need to be today for you to be able to create that path towards there?
Mm-hmm.
And that starts with uncovering some beliefs we hold within ourselves that we don't even know we have, that we've been carrying since we were young. You know, men and women, we've been conditioned by the parenting we were exposed to. Nothing wrong with parenting. I don't know if you're a parent or not, but parenting is very difficult. It doesn't come with a handbook, right? So, without blame, without judge, we have to really observe what was helpful and what is not helpful anymore in our lives, from what we learned from our parents, from what we learned from our teachers, the culture of our communities. The culture in Peru, in a way was so rich and beautiful, but also there were some things that I carry with me that were not helpful anymore as an adult. So when you start uncovering those beliefs, you cannot get rid of them, but
Mm-hmm.
you can definitely minimize them and bring a new belief. And that new belief of is going to who you really are and what is going to really help you get to that goal, is the start. It's the start to uncover, to recreate, to reimagine, to change the narrative that you're having with yourself. And it could be very simple, right? And there's different areas. I take the person, when I coach someone, I don't talk only about career. I talk about the whole integral, the whole ecosystem, right? As coaches, we need to do that because we're all one um, human being, very complex human being. And I work with those beliefs and how it impacts the different sections of our life.
Mm.
Did that
Yeah.
answer your
Yeah,
question?
yeah. So I'm wondering if you can maybe give a common example of a replacement. So somebody that comes in with a particular belief and then replaces it with another, it sounds like. So what's a common shift, just to give us something to grab onto?
Yes. Um, for example, I've had clients that start a new job and they're all excited. I usually work with senior leaders, so they come into the new job and they inherit a team. And they find out that the team is unhappy, the team is not engaged, and the leader immediately thinks, oh my God, this is going to be so hard for me to turn around. How am I going to do this? I'm going to fail. I'm going to be unhappy. I'm going to have to get rid of people. I'm going to have to really discipline. I'm going to have to really be tough. And that's a belief they carry probably from their previous job. Sometimes that's the reason why they left their previous job. So when we work together, we change the narrative to, wait a minute, what if the opposite is true? That they needed a leader like you to actually turn things around, that they wanted to see someone like you that trusts them, that believes that they have everything they need to be successful and a cohesive team. So I tap on actually the strengths of the leader to turn things around. How do we do that? With conversations, getting to know each team member at a deeper level. Not, okay, I got to make decisions. I got to be strategic. I need to create a strategy to, make sure everybody's following. When actually I ask them to take a step back and be curious and talk to each person, because each individual team member has a story behind them too, right? They're as complex as we are. So if we just understand that concept that everybody's beautiful in their own way, but we just need to really understand, clear the air, create that safe environment to have that conversation. People start trusting you. And when people start trusting you, you don't have to do this, you can do this. And leaders have found that very helpful to start a new role and bring their teams to success.
Yes. And I talked to you before we started about how I kind of wanted to ask this question around, when did you first feel like you could help shape the future? And, that idea of I don't have to just accept what is. Maybe I can make an impact on it. And everything that you've talked about so far has been about that, because not through your own personal experience of I'm going to do something about my future, and when something happened to you, you still kept making advancements and opening up doors that could potentially, you could walk through maybe at some point, and then helping other people to see that they can help shape their future. They don't have to accept that people are just like this and I'm just going to have to, and they don't have to just accept what's in their own minds, but that they can open up possibilities and
Hmm.
and make a difference.
Hmm. Thank you, Andrea. That's a beautiful question. I think there's two phases to the answer I'm going to share with you. The first phase is I'm going to talk about when I was a little girl, and I am the last of seven children. And I think that has a lot to do with who I am today. I saw my siblings, and believe it or not, in between the last child and the first child, it's all men. So it's all boys, right? So I'm looking at all these boys growing up and leaving the house, but not only leaving the house, they're actually leaving the country to pursue a better life, a better career. So to me, that was the example. So since I was a little girl, actually, I remember clearly this before going to bed. Every night I would listen to the BBC radio station, and I would practice my English and I would listen to that and I would say, one day I'm gonna go to a country where I can speak English and live a different life. So that started since I was very little. Not sure why English, and not sure why the United States or the UK maybe, or Canada, or whatever other speaking English speaking country. But then the example of my dad also was very strong in me. He was an amazing man. He lived until he was 99 years old, and he was a very ethical, disciplined guy. He would wake me up at 5:30 in the morning since I was 11 years old, and we would run 3 kilometers together. To me, that taught me discipline, consistency, etc. Now, I come to this country and there's no way back. For me, there is no situation, there's no problem in front of me that is going to make me say, okay, I give up. I'm going back to Peru, to the safety of my home, to the safety of my family. Somehow I always had it in me that this is my dream. I'm going to be an executive at an American company. That was always in my mind. So I was not going to let anything kill that dream. So that's the first phase of my question, the first part of my answer. The second part is when I work with clients, it amazes me to see that a lot of my clients, despite of their success in their careers, they do not have this ultimate dream, this ultimate vision of how they want to live their lives. A lot of people live their lives day by day, just coasting, just comfortable with being comfortable. And they don't embrace the discomfort of being uncomfortable. And to me, when you're uncomfortable, that's when you're changing, you're growing. That's why I always say my clients who are successful are those that do believe that you can continue growing and evolving as a human being until the last day of your life. More than anything, for the legacy we want to leave for our children, for our teams. So I believe that for you to be able to overcome and to continue and to keep, growing and not letting obstacles get in the way is that very clear vision of who you want to be at the end of your life. When you get to 80, you turn around and you say, yes, I'm so proud of what I have accomplished.
Mm.
Then that's where what we work with.
Yeah. Just being intentional.
Being intentional, I love that word. You have to be not only intentional, but you have to have certainty
Hmm.
that you're going to get to where you want to be. If
Hmm.
there is no certainty,
Hmm.
and that's, you can call it faith, you can call it, trusting. When you don't have certainty that you have everything it takes and that the universe conspires with you to get to that point, then the path gets a little bit more difficult. That's when the spiritual part of things, whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter, right? If you're a Christian, if you believe in Buddha, in Allah, whatever it is, as long as you have that um, sense of belonging to a universe that where there is a higher power to help you advance and to overcome, then it makes it so much easier.
So I want to tap into your expertise a little bit. The oftentimes leaders, like you'd mentioned at the beginning and your example, that they might come into a situation where people are not engaged or that sort of thing, and they're trying to figure out what to do. But there's also times when if you are kind of just going with the status quo, you've been doing okay for a long time, and maybe you don't realize what's going on underneath the surface. um how do you know when have you seen other leaders tap into or realize what's really going on underneath the surface, and taking that step back and doing some examination to figure that out? I guess it's a question of, number one, when do they know that they should stop and think, and examine that? And number two, how do they know what's going on?
I love that question because you're right. A lot of the leaders just, decide that they don't want to change, that they want to stay where they are. And unfortunately, most of the time they ignore the signs that something needs to change. So most of the time, when they wake up, it's because something drastic happens. A layoff, a demotion, a no, I'm not going to promote you. You stay where you are. A complaint from an employee. That's very difficult. It sounds very normal, but I've seen leaders, including myself, where an employee says, I don't like you, you're doing this to me. And if it hits really hard, I've seen a lot of painful situations for leaders to go through that.
Just to tap that real quick,
Yeah.
the I don't think what employees realize, or people who aren't necessarily in that leadership position, don't realize that that is a big deal for leaders, that they are just like us. Like
Yes.
we're all the same, we're all human. And not to say that they don't deserve to hear that. Sometimes they need to be told what how the impact that they're making on us. um I think that's the case everywhere. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because it is hard. It's hard to believe that people are actually human when they're in those
Yes,
positions. Yeah.
absolutely. S- So when those things happen, it's usually when a leader says, "Oh my God, I'm feeling uncomfortable. I need to do something about this. I don't like how I'm feeling."
Yeah. Yep.
Most of the time, unfortunately, the fear of change or what I need to do next stops them or paralyzes them, and they don't do anything about it. And they hope that things go away. They leave the job and go to another company, and the cycle happens again. It might not be an employee complaint, but it might be a boss they don't get along with. Because if we don't learn our lesson the first time, the situation is going to repeat again and again until we learn it, until we grow and step
Mhm.
out of it. So when that happens, the most important thing that needs to happen for the leader to really come out of it is to reflect, is to challenge the assumptions. It's to look at those beliefs. It's me. I'm bad. I'm not a good leader. I was not made for this. I actually need to go back to an individual contributor. And that might be the case, right? That you prefer to be an individual contributor rather than a team leader, because being a leader of a team is not easy, as we know. So that reflection, to me, that's what I call in emotional intelligence self-awareness, which is listening to your body, because the emotions that come out of the thoughts that you create will make you uncomfortable, you're stressed, you lose sleep, you're sweating, you lose appetite, you gain weight. I mean, there's so many ways that our body tells us that we're not where we need to be. And then, to listen to those factors, and then behave in a different way that is going to bring us different results. And that whole process could be done through coaching, obviously. And that's why I think coaching is just an amazing way to really become more self-aware. And when you become, I always explain, right, that when you do coaching, when you become more self-aware, this remote control that has been driving your life up to this point is put in front of you. And when you put the remote control in front of you, your vision expands, right? It's not hiding anymore in your unconscious mind. You're putting it in front of you in your conscious mind. Therefore, your spectrum grows, expands, and there's more options. Oh, and I didn't know that existed, that I can do that. And I didn't know that I can make those choices. So that conversation starts changing, and we create different results. We decide, you know what, let me stay here, change my approach, talk to my employees, have meaningful conversations, be more vulnerable, ask for feedback, give feedback, and the whole dynamic changes. And that's how a leader grows.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good. So, another question that I wanted to ask you, I've got a couple more. One of them has to do with mentors along the way.
Mhm.
Um, when you think about the mentors who've really impacted you the most, what's something that they did that you decided to adopt and do for others as well? So I'm thinking about, mentorship relationships. So what did they do for you that you also want to do for others?
Yes. Oh, for me, mentorship has been key from even from my brothers all the way to strangers in my life and the bosses that I've had, the good ones and the bad ones. But I think I think you attract people to your life. Okay, these mentors don't just show up out of nowhere. You bring them depending on which phase you are in your life. And the mentors that I've had in my life saw in me what I couldn't see in myself. And when I felt that trust and that, confidence from then in me, and then they started telling me, you can do this and you need to take these steps. And this is what they brought this in front of me. That's when I started growing and growing and seeing things more clearly, right? That lady that saw in me, she said, I had no idea. And she said, you'll be great in HR because you're so good with people. I had no idea. I mean, I thought I would be in operations all my life. I would be right now probably a general manager of a hotel, right? And being in operations. But she pulled me out of there and put me in a career that would take me to where I am today. And that would not happen if she didn't see my potential. So I think mentors have lived the experiences that they needed to live to be able to see more transparently what they see in other people and
Yeah,
identify the strengths in other people.
that's really good.
So I love being a mentor. I have a I belong to this organization where I mentor younger professionals, and it's so satisfying. It's so satisfying, fulfilling.
Mm, it's exciting. Okay, great. So, Elena, I want to ask you to share with us where we can find you and connect with you. But then I have one more question for you. So, first, where can people find you?
Sure. Easiest way is to connect with me in LinkedIn, Elena Sarango-Muñiz in LinkedIn. And I also have a website, www.sarangocoaching.com. Sarango is spelled Sarango. And I'm also in Instagram at Sarango Coaching.
Great. Okay, and we'll link to all that in the show notes.
Thank you.
My last question for you is if you could offer one challenge to someone who would like to help shape the future, what would that challenge be?
Start with yourself. So, what I would invite you to do is after you hear this podcast, grab a piece of paper and a pen. And I want you to imagine yourself a year from today. Okay, I want you to transport yourself exactly a year from today. And if you would say to yourself, wow, what an amazing year. This has been the best year of my life. And let me tell you why. I want you to start writing the why. What do you accomplish? Who are you now that you were not a year ago? What kind of relationships you've created? What kind of wins that you celebrating? How are you feeling? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling proud? What are those feelings that are prompted by the actions you've taken this past year? And I want you to do that not only today, but I want you to review that tomorrow. And I want you to review it the next day until you really feel that that is exactly what you want to be in a year. That you really believe that that's who you want to be, that that's what's going to fulfill you in a year from today. That would be an exercise that I would
Mm,
suggest people can do because we do not take the time to really dream. When we were little kids, we used to dream all the time, but because of the, conditions in our lives and the people around us, we stopped dreaming. So I want adults to bring back that child into our lives and start dreaming again.
oh, what a beautiful challenge. Thank you so much for sharing your passion with us, Elena, and your wisdom and expertise and your experience. It's been a lovely conversation and yeah, thanks for being here.
Oh, this was fun. Thank you, Andrea. I love being in your podcast, and I'm sure something will be of service to your audience. So thank you for inviting me.